One of the things that we are quickly realizing is that Trump supporters do not care about law and order. The second that the law applies to Republicans in a way that they don't like, suddenly it's the courts are an oligarchy, judges are illegitimate, and the entire justice system is corrupt and must be ignored. Now, case in point, we go to Mark Levin. Mark Levin, I think he has like a Sunday show on Fox News. He was interviewed by Martha McCallum, and he is now openly arguing that trial court judges, like the ones who said Trump's deportations to El Salvador are not legal, that those trial court judges shouldn't even exist because they aren't explicitly written into the Constitution. And he says that those judges are interfering. Take a listen to this.
When these judges are conducting themselves this way, when they're interfering with an election, when they're grabbing, seizing power in front of our eyes, we're all smart. We see it from the executive branch, a president of the United States. He's elected nationally. They're created by Congress. They're not even in the Constitution. They're using a power, judicial review, that's not even in the Constitution, that was created by the Supreme Court in 1803. They should at least have some level of deference to the President of the United States.
Isn't he completely insufferable? Now, there's a couple of things here that are very much worthy of discussion. First of all, there's the principle. We support law and order until you say ignore the judges. But there's another principle that they selectively use. On one hand, they say if something isn't banned by the Constitution, it's allowed. When it comes to the Second Amendment, when it comes to firearms, even though reasonable people can say, hey, you know, when the Second Amendment was written, the framers of that amendment couldn't possibly have understood the weaponry and the overwhelming power that we would have today with weapons. But they like to say, you know what? If it's not banned by the Second Amendment, then it's legal. Shoulder-mounted RPG, automatic fire weapon, what doesn't matter. If it's not explicitly banned, then it's legal. In this case, even though the Constitution and Bill of Rights don't say you can't have layers of the judiciary, none of it is banned. In this case, Levin's argument is if it's not explicitly in the Constitution, then it's not allowed. How convenient. But then there's the next Republican standard. If the courts rule against us, the courts are the problem. If the prosecutors bring charges against us, it's a witch hunt. If juries convict us, it's a conspiracy. They don't really care about law and order. And Levin actually goes so far as to start saying that this is an oligarchy of judges.
Is becoming a sham. The American people are losing faith in the judiciary. We can't have a judicial oligarchy of unelected judges at the trial court level who aren't even in the Constitution, telling the president what to do on human resources, on the border, on deporting criminal illegal aliens. I mean, wait until we get to non-criminal illegal aliens.
This is really not about some constitutional theory. This is one thing. Trump's movement doesn't believe in democracy. They don't believe in the rule of law or any system that holds them accountable. They'll pay lip service to it to create the veneer that they support it or respect it, but they don't actually support it. The courts were just fine when they were being used to dismantle voting rights. When courts said, hey, you know what? We don't need all of these protections of the Voting Rights Act. At that point, the courts were great. When there was a decision made to overturn Roe v. Wade, the courts were great. When it was a decision to gut labor protections, the courts were great. But when the same courts said, oh, we're also going to apply the rule of law to Donald Trump, now they're an oligarchy. And this is Authoritarianism 101. The law is only legitimate when it serves our interests. And if we don't take that threat seriously, we're in for a very dark future, my friends. And this is the core of the MAGA Republican Party. There are no principles. It is only power. We will scream our heads off about the Constitution until the Constitution tells us something we don't like. We will claim to back law and order until one of us gets indicted. We will rant about activist judges on the one hand, while packing the court with activist judges on the other hand at every layer of the judiciary. The moment their supposed values become inconvenient, they are thrown in the toilet. Whoops, I just accidentally hit my keyboard here. They are thrown in the toilet without a second thought. There was a point where Republicans were the party of fiscal responsibility as they saw it, okay? Then Trump came in and exploded the deficit with tax cuts for billionaires, and that doesn't matter anymore. By the way, George W. Bush did the same thing. There was a moment when they were all about states' rights, and then red states started banning abortion pills nationally, and all of a sudden, that's not the case. They spent decades calling Democrats anti-police, but then all of a sudden, the FBI is corrupt, and the DC police was bad on January 6th, and the DOJ is a deep state operation that needs to be done away with. Their entire worldview boils down to, if you start with the tree sap and boil it down to the maple syrup, right? What it boils down to is the rules apply to other people, but not to them. And this is why I have increasingly been telling members of the House and Senate who join us, you can't negotiate in good faith with these people. There is no governing philosophy beyond consolidate as much power as we can and punish our enemies. When they say that they believe in something, they believe in it until it gets in their way. So the moment that the law and the courts and even the Constitution itself become inconvenient, they are ready to burn it down. And if that doesn't scare people into action, I really don't know what will. And this is really what is at stake here. Now, I want to kind of warn folks on this subject. I recently recorded an interview with Tom Bilyeu on impact theory, talking about my book. And one of the things that Tom pointed out, and it's relatively astute, is that if you watch me on this show, I am expressing a certain level of alarm about what is going on. In the book, I couch it in a less angry way. And in my interview with Tom, yet again, I talk about these issues in a different way. And so one of the things that Tom asks during this interview is, am I as concerned about this stuff as I say I am on this show? Or am I as concerned about it as I say in the book? Or am I as concerned about it as I appear to be when I talk about it with someone like a Trump supporter, which Tom Bilyeu is? And the answer I gave him is, it depends on the environment and the audience that I'm talking to. And what I mean by that is, if we are talking to hardcore Trump supporters coming in and going, folks, this is a constitutional crisis, they are not even operating with the same set of facts. I'm not going to get anywhere. So instead, what I did with Tom is I said, Tom, are you concerned about Trump ignoring court orders? Let's just start there. Let's not even talk about Constitution. Just, are you concerned? And he said, yes, I am. On this show, speaking to folks who I know already understand to a degree the danger, of course, I'm going to use different language because I'm understanding who it is that I'm talking to. So as a sort of like preview, I did this interview with Tom Bilyeu. With him, I'm going in and saying, can I get 3, 4, or 5 little concessions from him to maybe get him to rethink? But I do believe that this is a crisis and it is potentially going in a very, very dark direction. Once again, Donald Trump's cabinet picks are all about loyalty over expertise. Election denier Kari Lake to lead Voice of America, the government-funded broadcaster meant to report unbiased news. Ground News found hundreds of articles covering this story, which is an app I've trusted for years to help me critically analyze the news I consume. Our sponsor, Ground News, doesn't tell you what to think. They show you each news outlet's biases, credibility, financial incentives, so you know who's benefiting from the spin they put on each story. You can even filter out certain sources you don't want, so you can stay informed without getting buried in the noise. Trump is shaping our future in ways that will last decades. And if we're not paying attention, we will allow history to repeat itself. So stay engaged with Ground News, who is fixing what is breaking right in front of us, the trust and transparency in the media. Ground News is giving my audience 50% off the same Vantage plan that I use. Go to ground.news/Pacman. The link is in the description, or scan my QR code.